From our mountains to our lochs, from forests through rolling farmland to miles and miles of golden sand. Scotland's magnificent landscape is a place to work, a place to explore, and a place to enjoy. Join us to discover the people and the stories at the heart of the Scottish countryside in a brand new series of Landward. This time, we're on Scotland's glorious coastline, meeting the people who live there and seeing the challenges they face. Anne's in Cullen, visiting a place to remember.
I mean, it's just really moving. There's a very special atmosphere here.
Ewan crosses to Alva to find an island community reinventing itself.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later.
And Arlene's in Eyemouth, brewing up.
Oh!
Hello and a very warm welcome to the stunning Angus coastline. Now, being a coastal nation, 20% of us Scots, that's almost 1 million people, live within half a mile of the sea. But Scotland is shrinking. It's disappearing. And the reason? Coastal erosion. On a wet and wild day, I've come to one of Scotland's most vulnerable areas, Montrose. So serious is the threat to our coastline that a multi-agency Scottish Government project kicked off in 2015 to map out what's happening and plan how we deal with coastal erosion in the future. It's called Dynamic Coast, and down there I'm hoping to meet Jim Hanson from Glasgow University, the man who's overseeing it. Jim, how are you?
Good morning.
Breezy day?
It's a brisk day, it is
certainly
indeed.
is. Should we have a wee wander along then?
Let's go.
So tell me about Dynamic Coast project. What's it all about? Why was it set up in the first place?
The aim was to identify where the coast is eroding in Scotland over the years in order to give the Scottish Government an evidence base to predict what's going to happen into the future.
So why is it changing then?
It's changing because sea level is rising. We're getting more and more impact of local storms, and that means that sediment is being lost and coastal erosion is beginning to kick in really quite rapidly.
And what about the last 100 years? How has it changed in that space?
If you hang on a bit, I'll show you. Right, Dee, we're just about at high water mark.
Okay.
Right, one hand up.
Dynamic Coast is gathering information from more than 2,000 maps and 1 million data points. You want me to hit that?
Yeah, please.
Watch your fingers. So, I was expecting something a bit more high-tech. Where's this one going?
I've done this before.
24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
Well done.
So that's the last one knocked in. Dates, 1901, 1974, 2011, 2018. So what does this actually signify?
Well, the 1901 position is where the shoreline was at the turn of the century. That's where high water mark was. And you can see it's a good 100 metres away from the present shoreline. So we've lost all of that land since then. 1974, 70 years later. And so that's where the shoreline was then, 70 years later by 1974.
So it had gone back 30 metres at that point?
30 metres, but the rate of erosion across that 70 years is only about 0.2 of a metre per year. So relatively slow rate of erosion. But when we go from 1974, as you can see, to 2011, the rate of erosion has increased by 8 times, 1.6 metres per year.
Right. And we've got to 2011 to 2018, and that's
It's got-
20 metres in 7 years.
That's now 2 metres per year.
Goodness gracious.
So the whole system is beginning to accelerate.
So is this issue reflected across the country?
It is, Dougie. What's been happening here at Montrose is reflected across most of Scotland's beaches and coasts. Since about 1970, we've seen 38% more of our beaches and dunes are eroding than historically. But more worrying, the rates of erosion have doubled.
Scary stuff, but what can we do about it? Jim's team are monitoring 5 key sites to try to discover why it's happening. These locations, including Montrose Bay itself, St Andrews Links and Skara Brae in Orkney, are places reliant on tourism or vulnerable to infrastructure damage. Their loss would also have a significant cultural or environmental impact.
The plan is to identify what the problems are at those super sites by identifying where the sediment's going and where it's being lost. We can do that by using topographic models with aerial photography, with LiDAR and with drones. Once we've identified where the changes are occurring, we can deliver remedies that might repair those sediment losses. So adaptation might be part of the strategy. Building structure might be part of the strategy. In other locations, nature might be used to help us, to help it repair itself. Those techniques have been shown to work really quite well in other areas of the world, and we really should be stepping up to the plate in Scotland and beginning to think more laterally, thinking out the box to deliver more sustainable solutions to the coastline.
The threat from coastal erosion is alarming, and the work that Jim and the university are doing will help Scotland plan for the future. But what about the present? Later, I'll be speaking to people dealing with the destructive power of the sea right here in Montrose. We've already seen the impact coastal erosion is having on our landscape. Jim Hansom and his team are producing maps which can be seen on the website dynamiccoast.com that predict how much further the coast will erode by the year 2050 if no preventative measures are taken. Just beyond these dunes is Montrose Links, the 5th oldest golf course in the world. And whether I or anyone else will be able to tee off there in the years to come is far from certain. So concerned is the Links course about the situation, it even has a coastal erosion committee. And today, I'm hitting the fairway with course chairman John Adams.
Okay. Right, yeah, we'll go and have a look at the second tee, and you can see what we have over here.
Okay, so we've got the beach behind you.
Yep. This is our second fairway. You can see it's precarious. Don't go too close to the edge.
No, I won't, no.
But this was remodelled in 2006, and we've lost about 30 metres. 30 metres of dunes gone in 10 years.
That really, in 10 years, that much?
Yeah. Well, the where you see the white post down here, that was the edge of our second fairway at one time. Now it's top of the beach.
Wow. That's quite a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The slight spit of land you see out there was our third tee going back 2 years ago. We removed the rock armour you see in front of us to protect this area, and we've lost the third tee, lost it in about 3 months.
My goodness. You can see straight away that some work has been done here.
Yep, this is the residual rock armour from the third tee.
In spite of their efforts, John's concerned about the town flooding.
If you look at Montrose, the majority is below sea level. With the beach changing, it's a matter of time, really.
Angus Council, a partner in the Dynamic Coast project, has put in rock armour. But John reckons it's not the ideal solution.
And it's quite unsightly, and it's not a fix, really, because if you put rock armour in, it's moving the problem somewhere else.
Was there anything that can be done that will have a proper long-term impact on this?
Long-term solution would be a sand engine.
A sand engine uses sand, natural tides and currents to rebuild and protect the coastline. A trial project in Holland has proved so successful there are plans for a similar installation in Norfolk by summer 2019. John believes there's a business case to install one on the Montrose coast. How much does a sand engine cost?
It depends on the size, but we're not talking, we're talking a bit of money. Around about, I would think somewhere in about 20 million.
20 million, okay.
But when you look at rock armour, which is every 100 metres is £1 million.
Don't we just have to accept that coastlines, by their very nature, are going to change?
We're going to have to live with it long term, but we can do something about it if we really want to.
For places like Montrose, coastal erosion is a problem that's not going to go away. What we'll all have to think about is the best way of living and dealing with it in the future.